At home, I am fun-loving, enjoying you and all. In my office, people fear me because I don't take any nonsense from them. And in the aircraft, I am a psycho. Once you go into the air, you're a different human being. You're a different person. At all times, you're thinking, अच्छा अभी engine fail होगा तो क्या होगा? अभी ये होगा तो क्या होगा? अभी अगर ये light on हो गया तो क्या होगा? I reached the islands of Andaman and Nicobar. The runway was damaged at hundreds of places. So people who were already there, the survivors on the island who were there, they had cleared a certain portion of the runway, a small portion of the runway, where we could do a short landing in Arunachal Pradesh. Was an amazing experience. Even the civilian population was allowed to travel in the helicopter.
Oh wow.
So we used to do couriers. We used to take bhed bakri in our aircraft for them. They
Okay.
were allowed to carry their bhed and bakri and dog and everything.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to Fauji Days. Today we have with us Air Commodore Nitin Sathe, a writer, a military historian, a cyclist, a handwriting expert, and many more things. After 36 years of illustrious career, he's finally retired, and today he's here with us. Hello, sir.
Hi.
How? Welcome to our channel.
Thank you so much for taking me on.
Sir, you are an Air Commodore. How did this journey with the Indian Air Force start?
Like any other journey, started at a very young age of 15 and a half, when I decided to write my exam for the National Defence Academy. And thereafter, it's been a dream run. So we joined the Indian Air Force in 1984, December 84. And I went to the helicopters and continued to fly till the end of my career in 2020. That's about 3 years ago.
That's wonderful. What were the best years of your tenure?
The best years of my tenure, right from the beginning. In fact, when you start flying, it's the best time in any case. And then you get more and more confident in flying, and then you start enjoying what you're doing and getting paid for it. So the time when I was doing my active flying, those are the best years of my life, because every flight was an adventure. Every flight was something new. And so there was a lot to learn from everything that we did. So when you get back to a desk job after that, when you get old enough and then you get back to a desk job, then you start missing the cockpit.
Yes, definitely. And especially when you're used to being in the sky.
Yeah.
Sir, what were the major highlights of your career? Were there any missions that you recall specifically, or your time nationally or internationally, that you would like to share with us?
Well, like I said, every sortie, I can vividly remember what was happening. So I've done about 6,000 odd hours of flying, and I remember almost every mission that I did. So the most interesting missions, of course, are when you go for life saving, or you go into an operation where you're going to fire the weapon at the enemy. So these are the two areas where your adrenaline is kicked in the highest. And when you're saving lives, I think that is the most important part for a helicopter pilot, because that is what our bread and butter is all about. It's about saving lives and getting people to safety. So
Yeah.
all the the casualty evacuations that I did, and then I worked in flood affected areas in the tsunami of 2004, and of course in the Congo. So they were life saving missions that we worked for, and those were the most important.
Let's talk about them a bit one by one. Uh, I remember that you have mentioned in detail about your flood evacuation program in your book, A Few Good Men and an Angry Sea.
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate on what it was and what was your role in it?
Okay, 26th of December 2004, there was a massive earthquake in Indonesia, which caused the tsunami all over the Indian Ocean region, actually, right up to the shores of Africa. So we had tsunamis all over, and it caused major devastation all along the coastlines of all these countries. And the major countries that were hit were, of course, Sri Lanka and India, and of course Indonesia, of course, where the epicenter was. So my experience was that when I heard of the tsunami for the first time, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know the magnitude of devastation that a tsunami wave can cause. And that I saw for myself when I reached the islands of Andaman and Nicobars. I had volunteered to go there to kind of do some rehabilitation work for them. So it was the 1st of January 1985 when we flew into the islands of Andamans, and I stayed there for 1 year. And my mandate was, I was the task force commander of all the operations that were taking place on the islands. That is, the rescue, relief, and rehabilitation process on this island was under my command and control. Of course, we had a station commander there who was in charge of the station at Car Nicobar, but the operations were under my, under my head. I was the head of the operations that time. So we carried on initial part, of course, is the rescue part, where we try to save as many lives as possible, rescued the injured, took them onto ships which carried them onto mainland, or carried them to Port Blair, from where they were airlifted to the mainland again. And other than that, then the rehabilitation process started immediately after that, and a lot of equipment was coming, a lot of rations were coming. They had to be distributed to all the islands. There are so many islands in the Andamans. There are some islands with just 15, 17 people. So all the distribution of all this relief material had to be done by me, and it was a very interesting experience as far as tsunami goes, because we were looking after people who had lost everything, and we had to get them back into normal life. So that was a very good experience that I had with the tsunami.
I remember meeting a photographer director in the Goa Film Festival last year, and the moment he saw your book, his first reaction was, "Oh, I was there photographing these people, these
Oh,
guys,
okay.
these Indian Air Force guys who were working so hard."
Yes.
Um,
It was
how
hard
did
work, okay? It was really hard work, because things used to start early morning before the sun rose. We were walking on the runway and thinking of what is to be done. And the work is to carry on through the day into the night, because the runway was getting repaired only at night. So the operations used to stop, flying operations, the runway used to get under repair. Somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning, the runway repairs used to stop and the flying used to start. So it was round the clock for 1 year for just 70 of us who had to manage the entire show. So it was quite different than a normal place that we work in. Sorry, I butted into your
No, no,
question.
no. In fact, that's what I was going to touch on. How did you reach there? Because there's a tsunami, so the sea is inaccessible, and I'm assuming that even the where you were going to land was not going to be a safe place.
Yeah, what had happened was, the jetty was broken, so the ship was not coming in. However, a helicopter from the ship could come and land inside the airfield and take away the casualties that were there and get a doctor in, because our doctor was also dead in the tsunami.
That's
And
sad.
for us, the runway was damaged at hundreds of places. So there were little boulders which had come out of the runway, and that had to be, what they did was, the people who were already there, the survivors on the island who were there, they had cleared a certain portion of the runway, a small portion of the runway, where we could do a short landing. And hats off to the AN-32 pilots who landed on that short runway. There was water at both the ends. There were corpses lying around. There was debris lying around all over the runway, but they landed there with us. And thereafter, of course, our work started.
Congratulations, first of all, that you completed the rehabilitation, and hats off to
No,
you for so much hard
no,
work.
congratulations though should go to the entire country for the support that they gave us. It's not me or my team alone. It was the kind of support, the complete support chain from Delhi to the Lieutenant Governor in Port Blair, to our own commanders, to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, police, paramilitary, NGOs. A whole lot of people were there who were working, hands in hands, and then getting work done. And that is why we could complete what we did in just 100 days. We had the island back on its feet. We had the fighters operating from the island in 100 days. That was the mandate that I was given.
How was this experience compared to your international mission in Congo?
Oh, this is completely different. Mission in Congo was peacekeeping. So I was with the UN Peacekeeping Force in Congo. It is called MONUC, MONUC, which is in French. And in the Indian troops were going to that part of the world right from 1962, when the first time that the Indian troops went there. But there was a big break in between, and then of course the helicopters started going when Congo went under kind of a civil disturbance, and there was almost a civil war there. There was absolute there was looting, rape, everything was happening. there was factions within the military. So the government really couldn't control the situation, it was going out of hand. So the UN stepped in to establish some peace, and so that's how we all landed up there. And we had contingents which were kind of rolling on. So army units used to change in 6 months, the air force used to change every year. So it went on for about 7-8 years, if I'm not wrong. The Congo, 7 years I think it went on for the Congo mission as such. So I landed up in Congo after the tsunami, immediately from the frying pan into the fire. So I finished the
Okay.
tsunami operations, went to Delhi, got my passports and visas in the works, and we were off to Congo for the mission for the UN. So it was a completely different experience. We had over here, our mandate was to keep peace by use of force if necessary.
Okay.
That was the chapter 7 of the UN says that you can use force to maintain peace. So when the warring between two parties used to start, we used to go and intervene with our weapon. We had weaponized aircraft. The attack helicopter was being used over there, and we used to give support to the other transport aircraft which were carrying people from one place to the other. During the landing phase, they used to get shot at, so we used to go and kind of pulverize the area and allow them to land. That's what we were doing.
Was there ever a chance where you had to, rain fire on someone or a group of
Oh
people?
yeah, we had a few things. I can only disclose one instance where there was this big faction fighting against another faction, and there were about 10,000 people who were actually coming towards Goma where we stayed. And at night, when we could hear the gunshots and we could hear a few bullets whizzing past, and so they were quite close. So it was decided at night to start using the helicopter to kind of disperse them by a warning shot initially, and we did that. And then there was a uh, there was a set of people who were the leaders of this faction who needed to be eliminated to stop the fights, basically. So we got after them. We came to know that they were traveling in a jeep, and we got after them. And that is the first time I actually fired at somebody and killed somebody in my life. And we did. We were lucky. We fired at them and they were killed. And there were 6 of them we killed. And that is how the entire that fight for it was called Fight for Sake. There was a place called Sake over there. They were trying to gain control over that place. So that we stopped and restored peace again by killing some few people, which was required. So that is the time when I actually fired the weapon, and I knew that I was firing at human beings. Yes.
You literally stay in the sky. You have a bird's eye view of everything. How is it to always be in the sky? How is life as someone who is constantly at a stage where others cannot be at?
Oh, that's a difficult yet an easy question. Uh, you see, my wife always tells me that I have a I have a split personality, so called. At home, I am fun loving, enjoying you and all. In my office, people fear me because I don't take any nonsense from them. And in the aircraft, I am a psycho. That's what they used to
Okay.
call me. Why? Because life is involved, mission is involved. So you can't have no second takes inside the aircraft in the air. So whenever you walk me to the aircraft and we get into the cockpit, I become a changed man. So it's a man machine interface, and you become part of that machine, and you want to do the mission to the best of your ability. Okay, so people used to fear flying with me because at some point, and I used to have fun also while flying. ऐसा नहीं है कि fear in that way, but I used to want everything to be done correctly as per procedure. So there were no shortcuts.
Yeah.
So your question actually took me took me back to that kind of a thing. But always being in the air, yes. Once you go into the air, you're a different human being. You're a different person because you see things differently, and you have at all times you're thinking अच्छा अभी इंजन फेल होगा तो क्या होगा अभी ये होगा तो क्या होगा अभी अगर ये लाइट ऑन हो गया तो क्या होगा so your mind is at its peak of thinking and react your reactions are the fastest when you're there. So I think that adrenaline flow kind of thing, it makes you want more after you come back.
Okay. Do you ever have you ever had any peace moment in the sky where you were like, "Oh, this is bliss"?
Oh, every time there's especially night flying, or we are flying in the mountains, top, everything is white, and like in the glacier, Siachen glacier or somewhere we are flying. The aircraft is absolutely smooth flying in the morning, and the aircraft is going on its own, and it's like you're cutting through fresh air, that kind of a thing. So that, of course, peace, that, and of course at night, with the moonlit night, stars shining in the sky, you are one speck of two flashing lights for anybody from the ground, but you are in a world of your own, inside, cocoon inside a cockpit, and moving around in dark space. So I think that is very peaceful. Yeah.
You mentioned Siachen. Have you served in Siachen Glacier?
No, I was commanding a base in JNK, and my beat was up to the Siachen Glacier. My beat was up to the Siachen Glacier. So my helicopters were operating in the glacier, and for which I, as the leader of the team, had to be there once in a while. I flew almost all the glacier parts of the glacier. I've flown in, and I have. But I've done a lot of research on people who have lived in the glacier and spoken to them and written about what it is to live on the glacier as a foot soldier. And for us flyboys, we just go there. We go to base camp, fly a few sorties, drop a few, parachutes for the troops to come and pick up their food and ammunition and what have you. Other than that, we come back to base camp, or we come back to Thois, or you come back to Leh, and then have a peaceful sleep. But with the people, 5,000 people who stay on those posts at 15, 16,000 feet, life is different. It is not Siachen. That is the actual Siachen. That is where our Indian Army stays day in, day out. For years, they've been staying from 1984 till today. The war is on. We are at our post all the time. People live in miserable conditions at one point in time. They're really miserable. Now today they have a satellite phone, they can talk home, they have something better to eat now. Earlier it used to be, we had powdered eggs, we had some, didn't even get any fresh vegetable to eat for months. It was tinned aloo or tinned pyaj or something like that we used to have. In old times there was nothing, these kind of rations were not there. Today, of course, we can have, malai kofta, and we can have palak paneer and the works at that altitude. So things are different now. But my hat's off to the army which lives at those altitudes all the time. We just go there for some time.
That's
Yeah.
all of your work is commendable. Everyone who serves in the Indian Armed Forces are an inspiration for the rest of the country, and we look up to you
Thank
guys.
you.
Sir, you also write about a lot of your experience.
Yes, I do.
From being a pilot to sometimes being a writer, how did that happen?
When it came towards the end of my career in the Air Force, when I went through the tsunami experience, actually, I used to maintain a diary of what my thoughts were, what I was thinking about, how difficult life was. And there was no water, there was nothing, there was no electricity. We were staying under the stars for a year. Life is completely different. You can't even imagine sitting here in a small place. Also, you have a fan over your head, you got a roof over your head, you got food to eat. You take it for granted. वहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं था. Nothing was there. So from there, I realized that life was something different. So let's just jot down the thoughts. So there was this dilapidated laptop which I had found, which I kept writing things on, and unfortunately the hard disk crashed. I couldn't recover a single word of what I had written. But
That's sad.
God given memory and my retention, thanks for that, 9 years later I started writing my tsunami experience again. Thanks to my friends in the media, they said, no, you must write this story because needs to be told to people. So then I started writing, and I interviewed some people who were with me and got some inputs. I had lots of reports with me which I had, so they were helping me, of course. But my memory was, thankfully, God has given me decent memory, so I could actually remember day wise what we were doing. So
Wow.
it was good to just rewrite the entire thing in one go, and then of course the editors like you did the rest. They put it nicely with the photographs and all that, and then we got the book out.
Uh, have you made it a habit to always write the good experiences that you have in your life?
Good and bad both. Yes, because when I wrote about this, I realized that there were so many instances in my life where it was learning for me, and if it was learning for me, it can be learning for you. It can be learning for everybody else. So I said, let's start with one story that I've been through. Like, for example, if I did a rescue of somebody, so let's put it in a form where people will be with sitting with me in the cockpit and seeing what I did in the rescue. What all hardships did I go through? What are the nerve-wracking movements that were there? How did we rescue a person? And then what happened to the rescued person? It was so nice. I rescued a few boys from Nainital, from a school, from a car crash way back in 1988. And after 20, last year or last year, I managed to get hold of their names,
Wow.
got hold of them, got them on camera, and asked them how their experience, what they thought about then, and what they think about their life now.
Wow.
So it was amazing experience to meet somebody who had rescued and saved
Yeah.
somebody's life. So that's what.
Um, I remember that in your latest release, 1971, 1999 War Stories, you talk about trying to capture oral history.
Yeah.
Uh, how did you come to this? About, this entire trying to capture the military history? Was it, a choice that you have made, or was it something that happened organically?
Not organically, but I made a choice because I saw something very, I mean, it was not very good. It was rather sad that whatever historical reports or whatever historical data that we keep in the armed forces, it is very, very bad in those times. Not much of effort goes into keeping data or keeping history. One. Then during the tsunami, I also saw that after 9 years, when I went back to the islands and asked people what they know about tsunami, nobody knew anything, and neither did any books have anything written down there. So I realized that there needs to be a system where we capture whatever we are doing. Today there is a flood in Uttarakhand, or we yesterday or day before when we rescued somebody from a helicopter somewhere else, or fought a fire somewhere from a helicopter. It should be noted down and it should come as a story somewhere within your archives so that it can be retrieved later and you can learn from this. So I decided to kind of get into the history mode, and I started going back into various missions that the Air Force had done. And in fact, my next book that I'm planning to do is very similar to what you are asking about, asking people how they flew a particular aircraft, say a MiG-21 or a NAT or some. I am asking people what they felt about flying that aircraft, what that aircraft was all about, how, what are the experience of flying that aircraft? Because it's not been recorded. What we record is on 18th December this happened, and so many troops came from here, so many fired from here, so many rounds were fired, so many people died. That is recorded history, which is doesn't make much sense to somebody who wants to know ki, how did he feel about these deaths happening, what were the families doing, what did it lead to in the end, you know so there's a human and humane angle that is not covered when you cover history, which needs to be covered, I feel. So I do this part. I don't do that part where I record history and say ki 10 aircraft were used and so many fuses were used and so many didn't work, and I don't go into that. I go into what Ravina Tandon did in during the Kargil war, and what she came and said, and what how did it affect the troops,
Yeah.
how did it play on their morale, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. I remember when I was editing your last book, I would call you out of nowhere and you were so patient. Is that one of your missions or one of the purposes that you wanted to compile history, that these stories should reach people who would otherwise not know them and also understand them?
Yeah, I think I believe that. Firstly, thanks for calling me patient, and my wife must listen to this one because she says I'm the most impatient guy on earth. Now, I love telling stories. I love after retirement, my mission has been to come online, go to children, talk to them, and tell them about how life in the armed forces is. I think it's kind of a motivation for them to join the armed forces. One, secondly, they should understand certain values, certain value systems, certain morality issues that come out of these stories. So it's a dual prong this thing that about life itself. Like for example, tsunami में क्या सीखा? क्या सीखा कि if you don't have anything, also you can still survive, and you should hope for the best.
Yeah.
What happened in the pandemic? People were giving up. So
Yeah.
my mission is to tell people, don't give up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. And if you work hard toward what you want, you will get it. So with all this together, I and my way of storytelling is to, like I said, keep you next to me in the cockpit and fly you with me, and then take you for that sortie and make you feel that the wave of the tsunami is coming towards you, what it was. So that's how I like to write my stories. Yes.
Uh, okay, let's assume that you're sitting in front of a young child who is interested after listening to you, uh, to go to sorties with you, figuratively. What advice would you give them? How do they start? What do they do? What teachings or from your experience is something that you can tell them about what they can expect out of this life?
The most amazing life that you can have is in the armed forces. That's what I do believe, because I I have not seen any other life outside, barring this post retired life that I have had. Okay, so it's got everything. You get a good lifestyle, you get good, fairly good, decent money, you get a good family life, you get to see places, you have lots of adventure. What else do you want in life? What else do you want in life? This is a wholesome life that you can get. So I would rather motivate them to ask themselves, do they want all this? Are they built for this kind of thing? If they are, then if they want, otherwise nowadays, what has happened is that people are just running after money. People want quick money. They want to get into business and make as much money as possible in the shortest possible time. But will it give them the happiness that happens when you save somebody's life, or you do hajar different things and get paid for it also? So that's what I want to tell them. Ki, come on, guys, this is a life that you must lead, and you must vie for. And not everybody can join. So it's a very difficult time. Lakhs of people appear for the examination to join the NDA.
Yeah.
How many go there? 400, 350, 400 people finally land up. What is the ratio? From 7 lakhs, you get 400 guys going in. So imagine, you have to work hard here also. It's not that it comes on a platter. So
Yeah.
I would rather tell them that they must work hard. They must look at it as a life and not as a job. Have stars in their eyes to serve the country, if I may say so. More than that, of course, to have a jolly good life, if I may put it that way.
Okay. Sir, do you think that we as a country or as a generation are doing a good job of preserving our histories? You talk about a lot of different choppers in your books. You talk about a lot of different stories from the 1971 war, which otherwise, when we look at the literature of war, they are not there. Do you think that A, would you continue doing this for other wars, maybe, or other operations that we do? And B, do you think there are enough people doing it?
I really don't know part two of your question, if people are doing it or not. But I would rather do it because it gives me a lot of pleasure.
Okay.
I get a lot of happiness from. I just finished a couple of interviews 2 days ago, and in fact, I'm planning on a few more in the next few days, in which I am meeting more people from 71 and Kargil. And now I've come to know somebody who's got a Paramveer Chakra in Kargil, and I didn't know that he was still alive and he's still going great. He's still serving.
Yeah.
So I've got permission to interview him also now. So these little stories have to be brought out. Do you know that there is a wing commander in the Indian Air Force who doesn't have any legs, and he's become the rowing champion. He's become a kayaking champion. He's got a gold medal in the Paralympics.
Wow.
Do you know that there's a boy who's an Air Force boy who's injured and paralyzed, neck down, and he paints with his mouth, and his paintings are sold worldwide? No,
Wow.
people
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
that this is the kind of, it makes you such a person that if you lose your hands and legs, you still do something which is worthwhile.
Yeah.
So that's my aim.
Now that you've mentioned it, how did your association with paraplegic veterans started?
It started because of my best book. My best effort was writing my friend's biography. He's no more. He died in 2014. So he was an Indian Air Force pilot who were flying the MiG-21, and he had an accident and he became a quadriplegic. Quadriplegic is nothing below the neck. So he couldn't even swat a fly on his nose. But he had a brain as sharp as any weapon that you can think of, and he could beat all of us hollow as far as brains are concerned. So he lived in a wheelchair for 26 years. His name was Flying Officer MP Anil Kumar. And it is a typical Stephen Hawking story where he didn't give up on his life. He wanted to give up at one point, but he didn't give up. And then how he started writing with his mouth, how his friends helped him. He fell in love. He did so many things. He did more things than what you and I, so-called able people are able to do. So for 26 years, he wrote on all topics from sports to literature to military to what have you. He could write on anything. And if you read his writings, you will be flabbergasted at the quality of English that he uses. From a boy who comes from a small village in Trivandrum, brought up in a local Malayali school, going to a scenic school which does not have so much emphasis, if I may say so, on English as such. But if you see his command over the English, then you'll say, "Oh, what a guy!" So I wrote about him, and that book actually is the one which is very, very close to my heart. In fact, it's got some awards and all. So, and it's into 8 languages today. I got it into
Wow.
8 languages. So I wanted to reach the maximum number of people because this book is the one which inspires anybody who reads it never to give up.
Yeah, definitely. So, how did you continue your association in this, mission?
Yeah. I didn't get to that. So I got in when I was doing the story. I actually went and stayed with his family in Trivandrum to get a feel of how it was to live with a in a small village with his family. Then I went and stood with the boys in school, ate with them, played football with them, slept in their bed just to get a feel of the hostel. And then I went, of course, then I knew about the NDA because we were together in the NDA and the Air Force. So I wrote about that. Then I went to the paraplegic home and I stayed with the boys there. And I found out about their lives as to how it is to be, it's so well. When we together meet, we say, "Hi, how are you?" Shake
Yeah,
hands. So the first instance, when you go to meet MP Anil Kumar, you say like this, so he can't move his hands.
yeah,
Then you suddenly feel, oh, where am
yeah.
I? And those people couldn't be bothered. They are so cool about things. They're in their wheelchairs, walking around, playing cards, having their smoke. They're having their coffee on the roadside, chit chatting, working on computers, doing all that you and I can do. So-called normal people can do. So those were the and there's a paraplegic home here in Chandigarh also, in Mohali, in fact, and there's one in Pune. They are the two places where army guys are there who got injured in battle as well as in accidents, who are kept there, who are spinal injury people. So they are the people who are paraplegics and quadriplegics, and they are looked after by these paraplegic homes. Other than that, I am also associated with a foundation called Nina Foundation in Bombay. They look after paraplegic civilians. So I've written 25 stories of 25 survivors of spinal injury in Maharashtra alone, and that book is going to the
Wow.
Prime Minister very soon because they want new set of rules for these people. They want some things that the government needs to work. So those stories also are there. I'm also associated with a foundation called Ghar in Pune, where we look after destitute women and children and women with paraplegia. So we've got some paraplegic women with us over there, and we look after them.
That's wonderful. Sir, you have mentioned so many things from your entire career. What was the one highlight? It can be any sortie that you might have that you remember because maybe it was so beautiful, or maybe because it was of a lot of significance to you, or anything out of 36 years of your career that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, flying in the northeast maybe. Flying in the
Okay.
northeast because northeast in those times was a different country. The moment you cross Bagdogra, it is a
Mm.
different India. It's cut off from the mainland. Actually was. Abhi it's completely developed. So we were at the last airfield in the northeast, and we used to fly further into the northeast to the last post with China. So to fly in those valleys from Tawang to Vijayanagar, all the different valleys that are there in Arunachal Pradesh was an amazing experience, because we were actually their God sent from the air. We were taking them khana, pina, jina, everything was being looked after by helicopters in those times. Even the civilian population was allowed to travel in the helicopters.
Oh, wow.
So we used to do couriers, we used to take bhed bakri in our aircraft for them. They were
Okay.
allowed to carry their, bhed and bakri and, dog and everything. So they used to pay a ticket for them and they used to carry them. So it was good fun to fly there. It was a different life. So something very interesting. I must write about this. In fact, I have not written about
How
this.
many years were you serving in the Northeast?
Northeast, I did 2 tenures. One from 1988 to 1991, and then of course I went as overall in charge of all operations of Northeast sector. That means I was sitting in Shillong and looking after those 100, 200 aeroplanes which are flying all over the Northeast. So that was at a senior level that I was looking at. So two tenures.
Uh, Tell me a bit more about your time in Northeast, because it sounds very different from everything that you have told.
Northeast is a different country, different world, different world. There are places where nobody else has ever gone to. Abhi to, now the tourism is opened up and you can go to Itanagar also. Earlier there was a line in Arunachal Pradesh beyond which a normal human being cannot go. You have to have an inner line pass made by the DC himself,
Okay.
and you have to apply for that pass, and then he'll give you that pass. Then you're allowed to go ahead. There were no roads. There was nothing. Even the military helicopters couldn't carry any civilians for this kind of, for going. Only government officials were allowed to go, and the local population were allowed to come in and go out. So there was a complete disconnect of the so-called old times. They should be called NIFA, the Northeast Frontier Agency. So the NIFA sector, entire sector, was completely different than the rest of our Indian, where the people eat differently, speak differently, they wear something very different. Everything is different. It's like a foreign country when you go there.
Thank you so much, sir, for your honesty in the answer. But now,
Always.
so moving on to our next segment, I am going to ask you a few rapid fire questions.
Oh my God. Some kind of a game. Are you going to give me something for it?
What do you want?
I need some incentive.
Chalo, done. We'll give you
Treat
something.
me to a good lunch. Chalo.
Yeah, we'll treat you to a good lunch. Done.
Good.
So I won't give you a lot of time. So you have to just at the tip of your tongue, whatever comes,
My
just
God.
give us the answer.
We'll have to edit it in the end if I say something wrong. Okay. Chalo. Let's
Okay. Let's start. Flying or writing?
Flying.
That was quick. A favorite field tenure?
Favorite field tenure?
Yeah.
JNK.
Okay. Pune or Chandigarh?
Chandigarh.
Good answer. Favorite aircraft to fly?
The Mi-35.
Wow. What was so special about it?
Which is an attack helicopter, no?
Okay.
All the guns, rockets, this, that. For a person outside, I want to impress him also, that Mi-35. Otherwise, I love to fly the Cheetah. Small little bubble of an aircraft which can go to all altitudes and land everywhere. It's the lifeline of the Siachen glacier. That's a beautiful aircraft. That's a totally manual aircraft to fly. Fun.
So if you have to choose one between them.
Now you give me another choice, then Cheetah.
Okay, done. Theek. Favorite personal weapon?
Makarov. That's all pilots carry a Makarov pistol. It's a very nice, handy weapon.
Okay. Favorite war movie or novel?
Guns of Navron.
Okay.
Both novel also and the movie also, both were good.
Okay. What's the best thing about armed forces?
Fun.
It's fun. Okay. What's the favorite story that you've written so far?
My favorite story is about meeting somebody on a bus
Okay.
in the middle of Africa. And that lady, unfortunately, she's no more. But a short journey of those 10, 12 hours in the bus, how she saved my life also, as well as what interactions we had. I think that's the way I have conveyed it. You'll be in the bus with her and you'll enjoy the story in my book.
Okay. I would love to read it. Last question. Choppers or fighters?
Choppers! Because they do everything. What fighting to saving lives, everything.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely. 110%.
Do you want to talk about any... We are done with the rapid fire. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was easy.
But I'm going to add one question. Do you want to talk about any specific aircraft or your love for any specific aircraft?
All aircrafts are beautiful. Yeah, they're such beautifully designed machines. So many people must have broken their heads and hearts over making that machine before it finally came into our hands to actually fly. So, and of course, the technicians who work on it day in and day out to keep it serviceable. So, ऐसा कोई machine नहीं है जो which is favorite or non-favorite. But if you are looking at technology wise, then the latest machines that have come, the American machines that have come, oh, they are all gizmos, touch button, everything is with a. So I call them button pilots. They just keep putting their finger here and there, and just like a mobile screen, just playing with things, and everything happens on its own. To the absolute manual flying, where your hands and legs and everything is on the go. But I would rather prefer the older version myself, if you ask me personally. But the gizmos, if it gets into this, kind of integrated, then good of both will come in.
I think we need to have another episode where we simply just talk about aircraft.
Aeroplanes. Oh yeah, that'll be. You can spend another couple of hours with me for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you, ma'am. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much to our audience who have joined us. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much.
Friends, our Faujis have been and continue to be the lifeline of our nation. Come hell or high water, they have always been there for us, whether in times of war or natural calamity or any other challenge India has ever faced. And the culture, traditions, and history of the Indian military are part of a rich heritage, painstakingly preserved by one and all. To cherish and celebrate this heritage, a unique initiative called Fauji Days has been launched by the budding startup 99 Beagles. So what is Fauji Days? Well, it is primarily an oral history project based on interviews and recordings. Faujis always have tons of stories to relate, many of them inspiring, thought-provoking, funny or engaging, and highly satisfying for the curious, especially young adults in their formative years. These engaging interactions between officers, men and women from our services, with young adults from schools and universities are being captured on camera by us. We want to showcase the diversity of lived experiences on the one hand and the perceptions and expectations on the other. Allow me to also add that the scope of Fauji Days initiative is not limited to just oral history. It also encompasses the written word and the world of military publishing. Already, several books by eminent military authors have been published under this umbrella, and all have been well received by the readers. The Fauji Days website is another crucial resource designed to house the diverse aspects of this project. It features multiple blogs, reference and archival material, and a community newsletter that highlights the progress made as well as the new recordings and books. Feel free to log on and subscribe. I warmly welcome you to be a part of this initiative, no matter what color uniform a Fauji wore, or whether he or she served on terra firma, flew in the air, or rode the waves. The fact remains that each one of these brave hearts is a reservoir of remarkable tales and cherished memories. Fauji Days wants to share these memories and tell these tales to a much wider audience. If a nation is made of memories, then Fauji Days will prove that Fauji men and women have contributed some of the best. As a Fauji, you can reach out to us and tell us about your rich experiences. Get in touch and we will revert with an audiovisual team equipped to capture your recall. Or if you're too distant, we can guide you about how to record and send it to us. Of course, you can also write your tale and send it to us to be featured here. We have the wherewithal to capture you on video from whatever location on the planet. All we want is to know your story so that India knows her story better. It is incomplete without yours. Please also feel free to send your contributions to this archive of India's valor in the form of nostalgic pieces, anecdotes, pictures, or other content you may wish to share with the wider Fauji Day community. On behalf of Team 99 Beagles, I thank you. As they say, Fauji Days never end. In fact, they are just beginning. So, Fauji Days forever. Jai Hind.